All right. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes. In the meantime, how is everyone's week going?
Mine is going
It's going. Going good, Val?
amazing. Yeah, I just removed contingencies last night on my buyers that I did with my buyers or whichever way to say it. So we negotiated a $17,500 credit, which is awesome. And I had 2 days of sleepless nights because I was like, the sellers are just not going to respond. That's it. We're falling out of escrow. This was it. But then we all agreed, and that's awesome. So hopefully we can close early next week, which would be awesome. So I'm excited.
Congratulations. I'm sure, a big load off your mind.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that first, I'm always going to ask you what you guys want to mastermind around, and so that we make sure we have a few minutes for that. So be thinking about that. But what we're going to do over the next few weeks, I've mentioned this before, is we're really going to be talking about things of how we can set 2024 up for success, right? Our PC theme this year was, if it's to be, it's up to me, in 2023. And that's going to lead into 2024 excuses no more. And so I think that's an appropriate theme. We've been hearing all of the reasons why people aren't doing things right, interest rates and prices going up and this, that, and the other. Well, we're done with that, right? I mean, it's still going to happen, but we're going to overcome that. We are overcoming that, and a business just needs to move on. So we really want to propel you guys. And so part of what we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to bring in the 6 personal perspectives, which is very foundational. Gary Keller used to train. Every time he started a training, he would start off talking about the 6 personal perspectives, because they are so important toward our mindset. And so we want to make sure that we're going into next year and into our business planning soon with those proper mindsets. So he is quoted as saying, and I believe this to be true, is what it is that differentiates those who achieve at the highest level from those who don't seem to accomplish as much. And that is mindset. And that's how he came up with these 6 personal perspectives. So I'm going to read you just a little blurb that he put in here that I think is important. Gary has said, when you interview the very top people and ask them what their biggest challenge is, invariably, they will tell you it's mindset, keeping it strong, focused, and positive amid the challenges they encounter every day on their way to the top. Gary continues, life is an inside to the outside experience. When you get this at a deep level, you realize that who you are inside determines and drives what you are outside. The very best achievers know this, and therefore truly work on and protect their mindset. So what do you think about that?
I mean, it's important for everything. Attitude, it's just basically positive. That's why there's so many speakers out there that speak positive mental attitudes and, personal help books and all that stuff, because you got to have that. I mean, you're always more productive when you're happier and more positive. When you're down in the dumps and things aren't going your way, it's kind of hard to get out of that and move forward. So
that's very true. And there's so much more to mindset than just thinking positive, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've had a big just before I submitted the offer for this current escrow, I was in a bit of a low moment, and I feel like I'm really trying to really always stay in the same positive overall, kind of have that positive attitude. But it's hard when it feels like nothing's moving forward and you don't know when the next paycheck is going to come, or when the next, not even just paycheck, but transaction. It sometimes feels like you put so much effort in and nothing's really moving. yeah, I don't know. It's hard to do that when the outside doesn't reflect back what you're putting in, right? Like it's hard to keep being positive, but I always like I like that kind of idea of you can't expect you can't expect the mirrors to smile back at you. Like you have to smile first, and then the reflection in the mirror is going to smile back at you. So every time I feel like the outside is not reflecting to me what I want to see, I'm like, all right, I'll smile harder.
I love that. I actually don't know if I've ever heard that one. I love that. I'm going to steal that one.
It helps me, it makes sense. It's like very simple, but it makes sense, right? You can't expect the other side to do good first, and then you're gonna smile too.
Yeah, right. We can't let the outs. If there's also the sayings that what's the definition of insanity, right? Continuing to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so as we go through these 6 personal perspectives, Michelle, did you want to say something?
That's okay. I think there was someone else ahead of me, but yes, just along those same terms, I feel like with mindset that the lack of knowledge completely affects my mindset. And so being more informed and understanding how things work, going through the process, writing contracts, that in itself has given me the confidence and the mindset, like I can do this and not feeling so lost. So
Awesome.
that's all. Thank you.
I love to hear that. Thank you for sharing. And as we go through these, and we're not going to go through them all today, I'm going to highlight them today. And then we're going to maybe do 1 to 2 a week, depending on how the conversations go, because I want to dig deep. And it's not just about, okay, what is the perspective? Here's what it is. Right. I want everyone to think really hard. How can we apply this in our business? Right. So how can we move this perspective into our mindset and into our business, not just about learning what it is, right? Because we can talk about what they are, but if we're not moving forward, if we're not implementing, then why bother to talk about it, right? So, and I intend by the next few weeks after we talk about all of these, it's going to really help reshape some of our mindsets, right? And remove some limiting beliefs and really help maybe change some of those things, or help recognize some of those things that need to be changed, so we don't fall into that definition of insanity, right? Not that I'm calling anyone insane.
So, Jodi,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to add a little one more thing as far as the more I go, the more I read, the more I study, the more I go to the classes, and then of course try and implement it. But the more knowledge I get and absorb and keep, the more confidence I have, which also reverts into a better mindset towards my business. So
Absolutely. And that actually speaks to the 4th perspective, which is being learning based.
Mhm.
And same thing with what Michelle shared too, right? When
Right.
when we learn things, we get more comfortable. And yet it's a limiting belief to say that we have to know everything before we can start working. And so figuring out how to do that, right? So let's start by highlighting what the 6 personal perspectives are. And then we'll go into talking about the first one. Before we do that, did anyone come here today with something very specific they need to mastermind around? Remember, this is a mastermind. This is not Ask a Coach. So we have Ask a Coach every day. We have our email, we have WhatsApp, that's available for any help that you need, simple questions or not, they don't even have to be simple questions, but we want to mastermind around things that are going to be for the good of the group to help us be able to move our business forward. Because the goal is every time you come to something, you should be able to take away one nugget, right, that you can personally implement.
Okay. I have a situation that's just come into my business. That I did an open house this last weekend out of area. It's an hour away, Inland Empire, and I got a lot of prospects. In fact, I even had a guy, as I was putting signs up, come up and ask me for my card. So and then I've made the calls, but I don't know how I can make it to where it's feasibly, now I'm thinking about, learning that area and working that area because it seems like a really good market. So, just as far as where to get started, or, do I find somebody out there? I mean, it's not that far, for me, but it's still, as far as going out and showing properties and everything, it could be, it's just an extra hour commute type deal.
So what I would suggest, first of all, when you guys are scheduling open houses, and I know that sometimes they're kind of hard to come by right now, but if you're scheduling open houses for the purposes of getting leads, remember, you're going to get leads in the area of the open house. So if you're not wanting to work that area in general, I wouldn't be scheduling those open houses to begin with. Okay. Now that being said, you have to make a decision, right? Do you go ahead and do the extra time? And I know an hour away in your case, is that an hour by actual drive time? Or because it factoring in traffic, or is it now 2 hours away, right? So you have to factor in, our number one job is to be a fiduciary. So if we're unable to do that because an area is too far, then we should be referring it to somebody who does work that area.
Right.
And if you need help with that, I can help with that because I know people all over the place. As a matter of fact, we're bringing on Chino Hills, which is going to be another area for you guys to refer to. Not that you can't refer anywhere, but anyway, but you'll actually have direct contact with people from there. So, and they're not very far from you guys.
No.
Yeah.
And then that's another, I mean, actually, a Keller Williams agent came in to the open house, and, I kind of felt around and, to find a little bit about, about her and all that, because it might be easier just to say, hey, let's work together when I'm down here, except for, 25-30% or something like that.
Yeah, what I would do is I would call all the leads. I would see where they're at, nurture them along the way, and when they're ready, probably refer them to somebody. Unless it's somebody you think you can help. If you can do a fiduciary job and do it, and you're willing to, then by all means.
Right.
In your area, it's not that far, and yet it can be, right? So it just depends. Is it a buyer or is it a seller? If it's a seller, it might be pretty easy. If it's a buyer, it might be time
Seller's
consuming.
no brainer. But like I said, I've really it's a different animal than where I'm at, Orange County.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty good market. So
Well, that's a personal choice. Just remember, in general, guys, don't do open houses in areas you're not willing to continue working in, because those are the people that are going to walk into those open houses, right? So, and you don't want to go waste your time doing open houses just to refer business. Not to say that you can't, but be careful about that, because that's part of using your time wisely, right? So that's a personal choice. So just you'll have to make that decision. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else that somebody wants to mastermind around before we get our other discussion going? Okay. If you come up with something, put it in the chat, and we'll try to make time for it at the end. Okay. All right. So first, let's go ahead and review, what are the 6 personal perspectives? Does anybody know, first of all, does everybody know what the 6 personal perspectives are? Have you ever seen them?
I think I have.
Okay. So they are, the first one is commit to self-mastery. Okay. So what that means is I'm going to nail it. I'm going to master it. So whatever it is, so think the way you would apply this to your business. And again, we'll talk a little bit deeper into it after we go through them all. But the way you would apply this into your business is, what is it that I need to know now? What is the one thing that if I master will make everything else in my business and life so much easier? Right? So it is becoming the master of something, and it's creating that knowledge and skills and habits to do that. So I'm going to put a pin there, because we are going to discuss this in more detail today, but the rest of them are, the second one is, and you'll notice as we talk about these, they all build on each other. They all work together. Okay. So the second one is committing to the 80-20 principle. And does everyone know what that is? Okay. It's the Pareto principle, right? You may have heard of it referred to as that. The 80 or 20% of our activity should result in 80% of our results, right? Wanting to be focused on those big rocks rather than all the other busy stuff that doesn't help us make money. Okay. So the third one is moving from E to P, and that stands for entrepreneurial to purposeful. And basically, we all have a ceiling of achievement, right? We all have that comfort level of, oh, I can do that, no problem, right? And yet we all have something, usually in our lead generation or something else in our business, where it's like, well, I'll do this and this, but that's not cool for me, right? That doesn't feel good. But it's when we can break through that we become purposeful, and we can really start to see a big difference in the results. And so what do we need to master? What do we need to focus on, right? The first 1 and 2 principles to become purposeful. The fourth one is always be learning based. So making that the foundation of your action plan, right? So we're never going to know everything there is to know in this business. I've been doing this all on the other side of closer to 3 decades, and there's still so much to learn. The business changes, right? The principles remain the same. Everything set out in the MREA book for the systems and the models and the having to lead generate and follow up with those leads, none of that changes ever. But how we do that changes, right? So we always need to stay learning based. Then the fifth one, and this is a big one, and this is one that I love to talk about, because when I see people really have a breakthrough in this one, it has changed everything. And I've seen it happen with so many agents, and that is to remove your limiting beliefs. And when we have a really strong conversation about a limiting belief, and when people are vulnerable enough to share what those limiting beliefs are, and we can have a coaching conversation through those, and through that conversation, you change those and don't allow them to hold you back anymore, you'll be amazed what you can do. And sometimes the limiting beliefs are such, we may think of them as insignificant, and but when we really talk about what they are, then you'll realize they are significant and how they help us. Or the limiting ones don't help us, but turning them into unlimiting, how they help us. Okay. And the last one is be accountable, right? So we all need accountability. And so when we master something so that we become proficient in it, and we are using our time wisely, that 20%, to become purposeful, and we need to continuously learn, right, to make that happen, we will come across in these processes limiting beliefs. And so that's where accountability helps us stay out of that mindset, right, and into the accountable, the purposeful mindset. So see how all of these work together? Okay, so let's focus on committing to self-mastery. So I want you to think right now, I want you to think of 3 things, 3 specific things, and I'll give you a couple of minutes, that you want to accomplish in your business. There's no right or wrong, right? 3 things you want to accomplish in your business. And let's define it a little more. Let's say in 2024. So by the end of next year, what are 3 things you want to accomplish? And I want you to write those down.
Things that we hope to accomplish personally as a result of our business, or within our business specifically?
Either way. If the business is going to play into a personal accomplishment, so yes, you can even look at it. What are 3 things in your life that you would like to accomplish, right? And your business is a part of making that happen. We're working on writing down 3 things you want to accomplish in your life or your business by the end of next year.
Do we put it in the chat or just write it down?
You can just write it down.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was going to put it in the chat.
Oh, you can if you want, but we got
Oh, okay,
another
fine.
step. We have another step here. So maybe that one we'll have you put in the chat for
Okay.
accountability. How's that? Okay. Now what I want you to do, you should have written down 3 or as however many you wrote down here. I want you to circle, underline, highlight the one that is most important to you right now. Now, I would love to hear from at least a couple of you what that goal is. What is that one thing, if you're willing to share, that you highlighted, circled, or underlined that's most important to you to accomplish next year?
I'll
Ernie?
share.
Oh.
Go ahead, Salome.
Yeah, I'm gonna get out of debt. Completely get out of debt.
Anyone else have one they want to share? Ernie wants to get out of debt. That's a great goal. Who else has one to share?
Mine, I feel like mine are kind of intertwined, so I'm having a hard time picking the my favorite one, but I wrote them down pretty quick, so they came from the heart. So my number one is being set up in my business to handle 12 transactions a year without, being stressed out or with like just smooth. And then my second one was go on 50% or work with 50% sellers and 50% buyers. Right now I'm doing mostly buyers. And then my last one was match the salary that I would make if I was in the career that I studied to be in, AKA my husband's salary. So
Okay.
they're kind of all intertwined. I feel like if one of them would, if I would go on 50% listing appointments or have 50% sellers, I'd probably match my husband's salary. So that would be great.
So if I may, if you used match that salary as your one thing, your one goal, the rest of that can be strategies in there. And they are intertwined, but that if you focus on that salary, getting to that, we can work with that other stuff getting there.
Totally. I mean, but also if I would be set up to handle 12 transactions, and if that was my standard and my framework, then I would also probably match it's kind of like which one.
Yeah.
Works.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Salome, do we have you back?
Can you hear me?
Sorta.
No.
No.
It's okay.
Let's have you go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay.
The other thing you might try just while you're talking and then turn it back on, turn your video off to talk, because sometimes the Wi-Fi you're on takes too much bandwidth, and so it doesn't allow the audio to come through.
Can you hear me now? Is it clear now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so just turn it back on when you're done talking.
So yeah. So I still live at home. I'm 24. I'm getting married next year, and ideally, really similar to Val, my fiance makes really good money, and I would like to feel like I'm contributing as well. I would like to be financially independent and get to a point before me. Maybe
I love
with
that.
maybe some passive income, getting some property of my own that I rent out.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay, so I'm going to thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to encourage you to get, not today, but for time's sake or in this moment, but as you move forward, I'm going to encourage you with business planning this year to get really specific about that. But right now, saying being financially independent before you're married for today's purposes, if I heard that correctly.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to ask all of you some questions. Now, you can choose, one of you can choose to do this with me as a role, kind of a role play, but it's a real play, right? And be coached in this moment. if so, let me know if you want to do that. Or I want everybody, I'm going to ask the questions and you're going to have some inner thinking and write down the answer to the questions I'm going to ask. Okay. And then if you want to share at the end of this, you can. And I want you to take this conversation into your other coaching things, into your group coachings when you're talking about wins and struggles. Those of you that have one-on-ones, bring these into that. So I don't want this just to be a okay, we heard it here and we forgot it, right? This is the stepping stone to really setting things up for 2024. That's what we're going to be doing. So first of all, you all wrote down your goal. You circled the one that's most important, right? Everybody's on that page? Okay. So how are you doing with your goal? So on a scale of 1 to 10, write down how you feel you're currently doing toward achieving that goal. Okay. Now, I want you to think about, how do you feel about what you're doing? So do you feel great because you are on track to accomplish it by the end of 2024? It's a no-brainer. Do you feel discouraged because I really want this to happen and I'm not sure how it's going to? Do you feel unsure? How do you feel about achieving that goal? And be honest, because the only way to help you through these masterminds and through our coaching is if you're honest. And remember, when we do things like this, exercises like this, please never write down or say, if we're in a sharing situation, what you think we want to hear, because that isn't going to help you. Okay. It's not about what we want to hear. It's about where you're at so we can help you move forward. So make sure you're writing down the truth about how you feel about that. Okay. Now I want you to think about, what will your future look like if you do not achieve that goal? Write that down. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes because I want you to think about that. Does anyone need more time? Okay. So there's a reason that I had you go through this exercise. Is anyone happy about what their future looks like if their goal's not achieved? We've got one saying yes. Maybe the goal's not big enough. It doesn't matter what the goal is, okay? But here is why we had that discussion first, because that's what helps us commit to self-mastery, right? Self-mastery is having great knowledge, skills, and habits that are going to make you the master of you, right? And in order to do that, the very first step is to know your goals. So we can't self-master anything if we don't know where we're going. Okay. Now here's another key. You also need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And it's okay to have weaknesses. We all do, right? We all have things that we're really strong in, and we all have things that we're not so great in, right? And that's okay. So what we need to understand is how to work with both our strengths and our weaknesses to be able to master the necessary knowledge, skills, and habits to reach our goals. So if we know we're weak in a certain area, we could either choose to focus on becoming stronger in that area, because just because we have a weakness doesn't mean it has to stay that way, right? Or maybe it's something that we know this just isn't for us. And so then we have to choose to do something that is for us. Does that make sense? So when we master something and when we become committed to that, then that's when we really start operating on a much higher level. Others will even be drawn to us, right? Because we're operating on such a high level. So I would love to have a couple of you share what is something that you feel that you would like to master, just one thing, in order to move you closer to your goals.
I can jump in really quick. It would be something that we do on Friday at the Lake Forest Market Center, which would be script practice, to get it down to like muscle memory. Because even when I get referrals that are like from within my SOI, I feel myself fumbling a bit. But like what Brittany says is they don't know the script. So if you don't do it to the T, they won't know.
Right.
But that script practice or get the scripts down to a muscle memory.
I love that. I love that. Because that is true. When we know exactly what to say in any given circumstance, then we don't have to worry about it, right? If we have commission objections just nailed, if we've mastered those, then it doesn't matter what they throw at us at a listing appointment, right? Because we know exactly what we're going to say, no matter what it is they throw at us. Are we going to master this overnight? No. But we work on it all the time, regularly, consistently, daily, weekly, right? To be able to master those things. Who else has something different that they want to master?
I think for me, it's just also more practice. I think I go back to the one of being like really feeling like I can comfortably handle something like 12 transactions, because I feel like for me, sometimes the numbers, the money numbers are kind of dead numbers, but I know that if I feel like I can handle that amount of volume in a confident way, then I think, if I am that person, then I'm going to attract that kind of business. Because I opened the escrow on this current transaction, and we were still in the inspection phase, and we only had 2 weeks, and my clients were out of town, so like the first week was really, really busy. And then I did an open house that I had already scheduled, and someone walked into the open house and wanted to submit an offer, and I was just very overwhelmed with the inspections. It's still still some of the parts of the contracts are new. This was actually the first time I worked. This is my fourth transaction, but it was the first time I worked with a lender, because my other transactions were all cash. So there's still like enough new stuff that I feel like I need to master, to feel like I could do 2 transactions at the same time while I'm still in that inspection period, right? Like now I'm happy to write another offer. Now I'm chilling and just waiting for closing, right? But like in that first week, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope for some reason, so I was kind of deflecting it, I feel like. So just getting better, like even better with contracts and asking all the questions, and just getting more practice and better systems, and yeah, just better relationships with everyone too.
Yeah, that also sounds like something to master there would be maybe our calendar, right? Because sometimes it's as simple as that. Yes, there's other things involved, right? But the learning and the knowing those things. We talked about that, having the knowledge and the skills and the habits, right? It's all of those things. And so the calendar would speak to that habit, right? So let's take the example of prospecting, mastering prospecting, because we all need leads, right? So let's just say our strength is that you're great with people. And I think most of you on here are great with people. That's a strength, right? But what if your weakness is you're uncomfortable to bring business up? Does that resonate with anybody? So we're great with people. We love having conversations. We can talk all day long. Oh, but the thought of bringing business up. And yet, what do we know about prospecting if we don't bring business up?
Not going to help. Not going to work.
Yeah. So look at all of this. Look at self-mastery as a puzzle. The one piece is you want to master the prospecting. Another piece is your strength. Another piece is your weakness. So what can you fill in with pieces in the middle to bring that full puzzle together, right? So then we have to figure out what's missing. And Manuel mentioned practicing our conversations, mastering those, right? Calling our sphere of influence. And then if we're uncomfortable with any of that, what is it that we need to do? Do we need to be at Kickstart to practice our conversations? Or in Manuel's case, he has an additional option in his market center for that. Do we need to be at the contracts classes that the market centers are offering to be more knowledgeable in contracts, because then we won't be held back to talk to the people that we know? So think about, what are your missing puzzle pieces? So I want you to think of 3 things, because we don't want to focus on too many at any given time, right? I want you to think of 3 things that if you were to become better at or master, it would help you toward that goal. And Rick, I know you had to help someone at the market center to bring you quickly up to speed. If you didn't hear, we started out with having you write down what are 3 things you want to accomplish by the end of next year in your life or business, and then pick the one that's most important. And we're working on what we can do to, what we need to master in order to make that happen.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, did everybody think of 3 things that they can master? So we've heard contract knowledge, we've heard conversation. Who had conversations added to their list? Anyone else have that added to their list of 3 things? Few of you, okay. What other things did you guys put on your 3 things?
That you mentioned it earlier, calendar. I'm all over the map as far. I mean, I'm trying to, like, there's not that specific one thing. There's all sorts of things, and then personal life comes in and gets in the way as well. So it's trying to get, and then also trying to get everybody around you also to help you to stick. Not not intervene or get in the way as well.
I see people identifying with you. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Here's what I want. One last thing I want you to do is the 3 things that you wrote down that you feel that you want to work on mastering to get closer to your goal. I want you to pick the one thing of those that, if you mastered, would make everything easier and better. The one thing if I was to tell you you're only allowed to work on one thing right now, what is that? And that, my friends, I would like you to put in the chat, please. Goal setting, okay. Open houses, calendar, commitment, more calendar. Conversations and contract knowledge, time management. Okay. No self-doubt. Follow up. These are all very good. Okay, I'm gonna screenshot these. Aha, so I have documentation. Okay, we're gonna take this one step further. I want you to think of 3 things, and this was kind of already alluded to, so I know there are things, right? Ernie kind of brought it up. I want you to think of 3 obstacles that are inevitable to or may come up that will get in your way to mastering this one thing to get you closer to your goal? Three things that will come up. Okay, does everybody have their 3 obstacles? Okay, so a couple of you share what obstacles are going to get in your way. We already heard family. What else?
The job or whatever it's bringing in your income now.
Another job. Okay, what else?
For me, I put not having self-doubt, and so outside influences, maybe not being supported or having other people express doubt, just kind of pushing that out.
Okay.
Well, my thing, what I think would bring me forward is to start working at a higher price point in this city, like do more expensive houses. And I think what would be coming in the way is feeling like I don't know the right people in that sphere, feeling like I don't know the product, or having limiting beliefs around not being local, like not being born and raised here.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So, are these obstacles that you all wrote down, are they true obstacles? There's things that are inevitably going to come up. So then the question is, what can you do to ensure that they're not going to get in the way? So is it having a conversation with family members about your schedule and certain non-negotiable times that you're not available to them? Is it learning something that's going to remove the obstacle? Is it using your calendar to a higher level that's going to remove the obstacle? So it depends on what the obstacle is, what that answer is, right? So I want you to write down for yourself next to each one of the obstacles that you wrote, what can you do to lessen or remove that obstacle? So who has one thing that they are would like to share that they are going to do to lessen or remove a particular obstacle?
Usually for me, we do house projects almost every weekend here. It's because we just have, so much going on. So now we can probably maybe do every other weekend.
Okay. So conversation with your family about that?
Yep.
And that'll help you do more of those open houses you want to focus on?
Sure.
Nice. Who else has something they're going to do to lessen or remove an obstacle?
Mine, I basically just I have to plan better. I mean, one of them's my health as well, so I gotta just work on exercising or eating right. And I mean, it's physical stuff, bone and muscle things that I've got issues with. But and then the other one with the job thing, if I got 1 or 2 transactions that would change quick. So
When don't underestimate the power of personal care, guys. Taking care of ourselves personally
yeah.
flows into how we do our business. So just because something isn't specific, I'm glad that you brought that up, Ernie, because just because something isn't specifically real estate related doesn't mean it's not related to your real estate business, right? So make sure that that's why we say life and business, because they do play hand in hand. So I appreciate you guys taking the time, those of you that shared, and taking the time to have some real self-thought. So if you want to spend some more time on this on your own, really digging deeper into the things that we discussed and enhancing maybe some of the things you wrote down, and maybe you don't need to, and that's okay. But what I want all of you to do this week, as you go into next week's coaching sessions, and in some of your groups, you're asked for struggles and wins, right? Maybe a win is you discovered something you didn't realize you needed to work on, and now you're determined to do it. Maybe one of the things you wrote down is a struggle you need help with. Okay. In those of you that have the small groups or the one-on-one coaching, the same thing, right? I know our one-on-ones, we've got several things to talk about this week to really set us up. But these discussions over the next few weeks are going to lead you into having really solid business plans that you can move forward with in 2024 with excuses no more. Okay. Anyone have any last thoughts, comments, questions, or ahas before we go? All right, then. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all at the next one.